Okay, welcome back. So this is just the modern tales and quickies with Babs. Now, like I said before the break, Batman 114, which is Fear State Part 3, Barbara does not appear unless I missed it, but I did go through it twice. So then we shall move on to Batman 115, Fear State Part 4. We have writer James Tynion IV, artist Bengal, and George Jimenez, and colors Tomu Mori. Batman and Miracle Molly are all that stands between Gotham City and absolute insanity. But an unhinged Simon Saint brings all the resources of the magistrate to bear on the Dark Knight. Is victory at hand for the Scarecrow? Here we see a panel of Batgirl suiting up, which is the wrong suit, so I'm a bit confused about that art-wise. Nightwing is looking sheepish behind her. It's an interesting panel to be sure. And they are both in the clock tower, and then there's a panel of Steph and Cass elsewhere, I think, just to give us a sense and context of what everyone is doing. We have the backup, which is where I'm going to focus my time here. It is Clueless Part 1, writer Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad, artist George Corona, colors Sarah Stern. So this is the Batgirl's backdoor pilot. Batgirls Cassandra Cain and Stephanie Brown have each other's backs no matter what, even if it means punching some magistrate soldier butt and putting an even bigger target on their backs. Meanwhile, a mysterious anti-Oracle character finally makes contact directly with Babs and has a few things to say about the unethical nature of Oracle's powers and what they think should be done about it. Okay. Ooh. Okay. So I am going to look at this. I'm going to Okay. So this backup is pretty important, not only because, of course, it is, like I said, a backdoor pilot into the Batgirl's proper comic book, but we get some big details here about the anti-Oracle. We find out that this anti-Oracle knows Barbara's identity. This is Barbara's secretary, it says. Later on, we'll find out that the anti-Oracle knows other people's identities as well. We also find out that the Oracle is a she, and later on, this Oracle, anti-Oracle, takes on the name or nomenclature of Seer, which isn't very inventive on her part. But I suppose if we're playing word or name association with Oracle, Seer makes a lot of sense. I love the art, just as I'm flipping through. It has that street punk style that I usually associate with Robbie Rodriguez, but I think it really fits the tone of this book. If we're going to have a fun book and a lighter tone, and that it mostly represents 2/3 of the team, I think that this is a great style. It's bright, it's flashy, it's colorful. Love it. This starts off with a bang. I kind of has to in terms of the current storyline that's going on throughout the Batman titles, but just seeing how the Batgirls are being used, in particular, I think Cassandra and Stephanie, and then Babs is doing her own thing, of course, and she's important, but just in another capacity. We get to see the relationships between each of the characters and what their individual roles will be like together. Babs seems to be, a fully capable den mother as well as the handler, I think, of both of the women and the mentor. Cass is definitely the fighting machine. And then Steph, I think, is a go-between right now. And I think we'll see where that develops. I feel like she's in a bit of an interstitial space of who she's going to be and how she develops. But it's fun to see her interaction, Stephanie's interaction with Barbara here, just that Barbara gets a little annoyed at the questions and things like that. And then later on apologizes, but it just feels nostalgic, Barbara, because we've seen this pretty recently in the past where she gets a bit upset at Steph as well. I like seeing Cass and Steph on the street fighting together. But Babs is fighting her own war back home, the only way that she knows how, the only person who could fight that particular war. So everyone has their place and they are a necessary part of the team, which I think is good. We don't have any fat to trim, and I think each one of these will develop, and I'm looking forward to see how they all develop as well. This was interesting, this one part where Seer pops up and says, "I'm your daddy." um it's just like Seer goes for shock value, certainly, and we'll actually see that later on in the Nightwing issue as well. So Seer knows these people pretty thoroughly, which is shocking. I am not exactly sure who this person is. I wonder if it's a known entity or not, but the entire time we actually have particular style of bubbles, which is interesting. Pink speech bubbles with blue and yellow squares near them, almost like COVID molecules. I don't know, but even the screens match those bubbles, so I enjoy that. And then, yeah, so, honestly, I don't have too much to say about this. Everything I have to say is really positive, but this is just, I think, whetting our appetites. I feel like maybe once we get, because there are 3 parts, once we finish this arc, then I'll be able to give you a better sense of what I think. But, if I were to just look at this, am I interested? Do I like it? Do I feel like it's engaging and beautiful? I think yes to all of those. I'd probably give it a 9. I'd give it, sorry, a 9 out of 10 Your Daddies. It's mostly setup, so that's really generous right now. But I think a lot of it is just excitement for what this holds in store, and we needed to be excited. This is just part 1. It's a backup in the part 1, which there's nostalgia there again because Barbara always played a role in the backup in Detective Comics in the past, in the Bronze and Silver Age. So that's kind of fun, but we'll see. So right now I'm excited. I'm looking at this and I'm like, if this is what it's going to be when we get Batgirl's official, then I will be super happy about it. Okay. Oh, I did want to show you, might be too far away, but just for those of you watching YouTube, that interesting panel. Maybe it's not worth it. Am I close? Oh, there it is. So if you can see, it's just a weird sheepish. Maybe she changed right in front of him, and that's why he looks like that. But just totally sheepish. And then art wise, I'm not sure. Maybe it's the right one. It looked so purple when I was reading it before, and now maybe it's gray. But I don't know. And then of course Steph and Cass hanging out there. Okay, so now let's move on to Urban Legends number 8. Kind of, sort of. So I'll at least talk about it briefly. So this is a Disinformation Campaign Part 1, writer Alyssa Wong, artist Vasco Georgiev, and colorist Rain Barreto. Batwoman Fear State tie-in. Someone has hacked into the Oracle network and has started spreading information around Gotham. Batman is dead. Cassandra Cain Batgirl is a killer. Fear toxin is in the air, which is true and which is false. Batwoman will find out with the help of Commissioner Renee Montoya and Kate's sister Beth, aka Red Alice. Yeah, that's certainly how I felt as well. So I just want to say that, well, here it is, right? Where Cass was. We all knew it, right, Donovan? We all knew that Cassandra was a murderer. And here we are. We are proven that is true. No, I've missed so much. This is what I was thinking when I pulled this open. I thought, wow, I sure have missed a lot with Kate. She's no longer pale. Her sister is somewhat mentally stable. Kind of interesting for sure. But I think the most we see some more development here. I just haven't been reading with Kate. And then we had that Ryan person and I missed Kate, but it wasn't as worth it. Then there's some romantic tension, of course, with Renee and Kate as well, but who knows what their actual history is. So here's Cass, and loving that, by the way. But I love this section, I just wanted to look at this. I think someone's trying to set you up, framing Batgirl for murder, sowing distrust and fear of the bats. That's effective psychological warfare. It would benefit any number of our enemies. Someone hacked Oracle. Let's see. Cass later says, I'm not a murderer. What if no one believes me? And Kate says, as Batwoman, of course, I do. So I think that these people, these two characters, have actually associated with each other when they were in the Tynion run of Detective Comics, if I remember correctly. It's been a long time since I've read that, but this is like a finally sort of panel. The fact that someone believes in a team member, even if there is incriminating evidence to the contrary, they just believe them on the merit of their character. Prior to that, there wasn't even any explanation. And I feel like every time up to now, especially in the vintage stuff that I've been doing, they have to explain themselves, and there's like an attack and someone's trying to shut them down. And by someone, I mean Batman. It's constantly Batman who doesn't believe, or maybe it's just a trolling and the readers believe it. And then in the next issue, it's all explained. But just finally, there wasn't a trolling here, and there was just compassion and camaraderie, I guess I would say. So there you go. And oh yeah, I stopped sharing, but at one point Beth is standing over a bunch of magistrates, soldiers, and says, I almost killed all those people, but her knife is out and it's bloodied. So I don't know if there's any almost about it, but whatever. Okay, so then we'll end with the big shebang, which of course is Nightwing 85, Fear State Part 2. Writer Tom Taylor, artist Robbie Rodriguez, colorist Adriana Lucas. Babs takes the anti-Oracle attack on her Oracle network personally, and she suits up as Batgirl, accompanying Nightwing and Tim Drake to track down who is responsible. But with fear consuming the streets of Gotham, Batgirl and Nightwing accidentally get hit with something that reveals their deepest fears, and it evolves each other. Wow, that synopsis actually is pretty spoilerific and slightly lying, mainly because of the Tim. They don't really do too much. But if we go through, so we get to do a nice little rehash with one of the variant covers here. But yeah, see, that doesn't really look like the outfit that she had on in Batman. But anyways, okay. So here we go. So how to even begin with all of this? So okay, stop saying so. Here's Seer. So Seer finally appears and looks like Mr. Sinister if you're an X-Men fan. Not really sure about this particular design, but she is female, or as far as we can tell, and she knows a great deal, personal identities included. The narration boxes, which I think really for this whole thing, Batgirl is in fact the narrator. Really interesting color scheme. We have red outline and red bat, and then I think purple. It's hard to tell. It could be purple or could be a blue, but that's where we are. So it's just really interesting why we would go with that. Perhaps we'll find out. But I guess they didn't want to overlap. Maybe they want it to be complementary colors with Nightwing. I don't know. So Barbara does, of course, something that would make sense, which is destroying her entire computer setup at the clock tower. And she needs to go and find her secondary one and either use that or destroy it. But she really is gung-ho about this. And you have to kind of wonder, if someone's life is so wrapped up in that and half of their identity is that, how difficult it actually must have been for her to destroy that whole setup. And I'm glad that she had somebody. Oh man. And Dick checks in, which is nice. Are you sure you're up for what's about to go down? But she again takes it pretty personally that, she's using my name, she's attacking my people. I've got to be the one to take her down, which again makes me wonder what is about to happen. And I'm trying to think. So we need 3 issues, which would be the end of, November would be Batgirls. So if that coincides with 86, then 86 might be Nightwing 86 and then Batman 117. That might be where something big happens. So that in Batgirls 1, I think we have the new status quo of however mobile Barbara is, because just to remind you, I believe that something big is going to go down, and that when she takes on this Oracle moniker, taking it back, she's going to take it back 100%. Though the only thing that goes against that theory right now is the fact that now we've taken away the anti-Oracle moniker and we've given that villain Seer. So I lose a bit of that there. Okay, so there is a nice little flashback of these two together, the classic blue and gray outfit, which is, of course, my favorite, if you didn't know that about me. I will say that Barbara does look older in this, which I think given, 52 and Rebirth, they're supposed to be more or less comparable in age, but she just looks slightly older. What's up with those pajamas? I don't really know, but there you go. There was something I wanted to say. Yes, this is a crucial page here. This is page 8. If you're watching the video, you don't need to obviously turn to, or if you have your own comic, but she's actually talking about her life. Let's see here. If I go back to 7, that she's sure she wants to do this. Sierra led you into a trap. She tried to murder you, and it was never even about you. And Dick says, I like to think it was a little about me, a bit smug. And Bab says, she did to hurt me. I know what that's like. Next page, I was shot. My life was changed forever. And all that pain was about hurting someone else. It wasn't even my story, which I think is really great, right? Throwing shade on the Killing Joke. And also, Dick later gives us some Barbara history, some classic Barbara history in the Justice League and Birds of Prey. He says, you sure as hell made it your story. You've done more as Oracle than any of us could hope to achieve. Your work with the Justice League, the Birds of Prey, you've helped save the world. I don't know how many times. I really should keep a tally of that sort of thing. So just in those 3 panels, this particular page, I love Dick Grayson for this. I love Tom Taylor for this, just respecting Barbara and respecting how far she has come. And I get a lot of Kim Yale and Ostrander feels from this, just taking a character that was really beaten down for no other purpose than to serve a story and serve someone else's story, and to give her purpose and to make her potentially, and I know I'm objective, but I also think, or I know I'm biased, but I think also objectively one of the most important characters in the DC universe, someone that can really tie people together. So that's, I think, a really crucial page for sure. Okay, so the PJs, and there's a nice little shipper moment where as they go out, there's a nice little hand holding. And I love the fact that both of them, she even comments, both of them have disapproving authority figures that might be upset if they catch us. So, hey, let's have fun and also do this. And then it cuts right away to the present time, and Nightwing and Batgirl, now not Batgirl and Robin, are swinging and going to her secret location. I actually love this page. This is page 11 in my document. This is probably one of my favorite art pages. I haven't done that in a while, but just again, I think really showing the strength of Robert Rodriguez, having that street punk art style and the movements and everything, and just the coloring and everything, I think is really cool. Later on, well, first of all, I will say that if Kira and Coco were here, I wonder what she would say about his arm placement on page 12 when he's swooping to get her. Luckily, it's it's lower, it's below, it's on the bat on the first panel, and then it's below the bat on her waist on the second panel, so it's forgivable. But he's copping a feel. He is copping a feel. Okay. Here we go. There's this fight, which is pretty cool with all the smoke and everything. I love the two of them working together in sync with each other, just like Dick and Tim are. So I think just certain members of the team really work well and choreograph well together. And then they're blasted by fear toxin. And then there's this huge panel. And number one, the art, love it. But what happened inside, I did not love. Just the gunshot to his head. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding. I actually yelled when I read this because I thought, oh no, are we going to go back to this Rick situation, which I was not reading comics at that time, or I was not reading Nightwing at the time. And then I thought, oh wait, there's got to be something more. But you can see, oh man, this is chipperific as well as tragic, just because you can see how much he means to her. in her emotions and what she's doing. I mean, and to a certain extent, she loses control. She doesn't get to the edge of like she's about to murder someone, but you can see. I mean, when Batgirl / Barbara Gordon lets loose, people need to watch out for sure. I think she holds back to a certain extent sometimes, kind of like Superman. But yeah, and then all of a sudden, whoo, we get pulled out of there. And Tim rescues both of them by giving them an antitoxin through an air mask. And then, Dick, I thought you were gone. Yeah, you too, Babs. And then shipperific moment. They kiss, which is lovely. And again, I can't tell where his hand is. Maybe it's on her waist, but again, she's the one I feel like. Remember a couple issues ago where before he had to go make that speech, she was the one who grabbed his face. Man, she's totally taking command of this relationship, which I love that a great deal. And then Tim, someone on the Twitters, Trevor, I believe his name is, said, this panel sums it all up. And I'm like, absolutely. When Tim is standing there smiling and saying, oh, finally, that was great. And then Seer pops in. And she says, I figured it would be bats or something, but nope, your greatest fear is losing each other. I mean, it would be touching if I wasn't trying to destroy you. So just seeing that, which is both good and bad, because people's weaknesses once you see that sort of situation. But again, here at the end of this, we're nearing the end of this issue here. Babs is the one to discover something big about the current mission. We've seen this in the past with vintage tales like Fugitive and Murder and things like that. But here, she uses her second base to hack into Seer's camera, and Seer thinks that's not going to do anything. But here, Babs can actually see the background and see where Seer is, which I feel like is really big and something that hopefully will come into play later on. And unfortunately, though, Seer, I mean, she's like, hey, good job. But guess what? I actually had an attack planned on you. You were here, but no one was attending your hideout. And 2 people visited you. And those 2 people are Steph and Cass. And I love that Babs in her narration says 2 wonderful women whom I'm intensely proud of. Talking about when she wasn't Batgirl and people stepped in. And Dick tries to call them and tell them and warn them. And unfortunately, well, Cass says there's something there. You kind of see a shadow and everything. Steph wonders what's going on. And then there's a big explosion at the clock tower. So you heard it here first, folks. Steph and Cass are dead. The Batgirls, it's not going to happen. And Batgirl's Clueless Part 1 of 3, that was a joke. It's just going to be Clueless Part 1, and that's it. No, I'm sure they made it out with Cass there. I'm sure she sensed something was going to happen, or Oracle may have had some sort of place for them to hide out, some sort of shelter. We know that it's okay, but seriously, Kurkum. I think I wrote to Donovan after I read this yesterday and said something like, Cass and Steph are dead. And then he wrote in all caps that, now Babs will forever be Batgirl, just how you always wanted it. I don't think I ever said that. But so we'll just pretend that Babs and Steph, not Babs and Steph, Steph and Cass are DED dead. And well, Barbara certainly thinks so, since she's saying that Oracle is going offline. And it looks like that this particular story connects in Batman 116. So that backup. So Clueless Part 2. So I guess I lied to you. Clueless Part 2 will be where we next see these ladies. Okie dokie. I shall turn my camera back on. Wow. We come back and suddenly the light has drastically changed. Okay. So continually loving Nightwing. Again, this isn't a Nightwing podcast, so I feel like I'm not going to rate it, but that was really good. I guess if I did rate it, I might give it a 10 out of 10. Yeah. A 10 out of 10 fear toxin induced deaths which lead to a kiss. There you go. Okay. So I'm going to move on. My last segment, I already showed you what I was wearing. It's my UVA football kit. So now I just have my literature recommendations, and I don't have as many. Hopefully next episode I'll have a bit more. I was going to do some readings on my journey to NYC. I was going to read some Amazing Spider-Man graphic novels. Okay, so first up is the sequel to what was it called? The Air Affair. This is called Lost in a Good Book. This is the Thursday Next second book by Jesper Ford. And let's see here. If Thursday thought she could avoid the spotlight after heroic escapades in the pages of Jane Eyre, she was sorely mistaken. The unforgettable literary detective whom, well, blah, blah, blah. Okay. The love of her life has been eradicated by Goliath, everyone's favorite corrupt multinational. To rescue him, Thursday must retrieve a supposedly vanquished enemy from the pages of The Raven, but pose off limits to even the most seasoned literary interloper. Enter the most seasoned literary interloper. Okay, no. Enter a professional, the man-hating Miss Havisham from Dickens' Great Expectations. As her new apprentice, Thursday keeps her motives secret as she learns the ropes of jurisfiction, where she moonlights as a prose resource operative inside books. As if jumping into the likes of Kafka, Austen, and Beatrix Potter's tale of the Flopsy Bunnies weren't enough, Thursday finds herself the target of a series of potentially lethal coincidences, the authenticator of a newly discovered play by the bard himself, and the only one who can prevent an unidentifiable pink sludge from engulfing all life on Earth. And I will say that it ends on a cliffhanger because we're getting close to the end. And I thought, where is this guy? And he doesn't pop up. So that's all I'll say. I'm looking forward to reading. I think there are 6 total, but I need to pause because of my Jane Eyre podcast. I needed to read some Jane Eyre stuff, which here we go. This is called Brightly Burning by Alexa Dunn and 17-year-old Stella Ainsley. Yes, you heard correctly. Wants just one thing: to go somewhere, anywhere else. Her home is a floundering spaceship that offers few prospects, having been orbiting an ice-encased Earth for 200 years. When a private ship hires her as a governess, Stella jumps at the chance. The captain of the Rochester, 19-year-old Hugo Fairfax, is notorious throughout the fleet for being a moody recluse and a drunk. But with Stella, he's kind sometimes. But the Rochester harbors secrets. Stella is certain someone is trying to kill Hugo, and the more she discovers, the more questions she has about his role in a conspiracy threatening the fleet. Jane Eyre and space, people. I won't tell you thumbs up or thumbs down. You need to listen to Dear Reader, episode 3. And then finally, The Lost Apothecary, which was on a Goodreads best of list from 2020 by Sarah Penner. A female apothecary secretly dispenses poisons to liberate women from the men who have wronged them, setting 3 lives across centuries on a dangerous collision course. Rule number 1, the poison must never be used to harm another woman. Rule number 2, the names of the murderer and her victim must be recorded in the apothecary's register. One cold February evening in 1791, at the back of a dark London alley in a hidden apothecary shop, Nella awaits her newest customer. Once a respected healer, Nella now uses her knowledge for a darker purpose, selling well-disguised poisons to desperate women who would kill to be free of the men in their lives. But when her new patron turns out to be a precocious 12-year-old named Eliza Fanning, an unexpected friendship sets in motion a string of events that jeopardizes Nella's world and threatens to expose the many women whose names are written in her register. In present-day London, aspiring historian Caroline Parswell spends her 10th wedding anniversary alone, reeling from the discovery of her husband's infidelity. When she finds an old apothecary vial near the River Thames, she can't resist investigating, only to realize she's found a link to the unsolved apothecary murders that haunted London over 2 centuries ago. As she deepens her search, Caroline's life collides with Nella's and Eliza's in a stunning twist of fate, and not everyone will survive. And I think, yeah, that was okay. I would say that was like a middle. It wasn't, it was a thumbs almost up. Thumbs almost up. I don't know. Caroline just, there was a lot bemoaning the whole situation with her husband, which I guess that should be allowed and one should empathize with it. But it got better. Like once she went on this mystery and she started to find her. I mean, towards the end, she like became her own person rather than the person married to Mr. Parswell. So it did get better at the end. I think. And it was really intriguing how the stories ended up aligning. So I would say just the beginning in certain parts with Caroline were annoying. But other than that, it was pretty good. Okay, well, this is it. So you remember, you can send any questions or comments to batgirltheoracle@gmail.com. You can also find the show on Google Play and Stitcher, and like the show on Facebook or follow it on Twitter at Batgirl Subscribe to the show on YouTube, obviously, for an uncut version. If you didn't, you missed the nude pictures that I was putting up over Nightwing, about Nightwing, of Nightwing. Follow the Batman universe on Facebook and Twitter as well, and support TBU by subscribing to Patreon. Once again, thanks to Mile High Comics for sponsoring Batgirl the Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast. Next time, fingers crossed, my ex-work husband plus Cassandra Cain and Roman history. Here's hoping. But until then, fly on, Babs lovers.